Well, hello there, and welcome to the first edition of the Zen Book Nook. Welcome. I'm Jason, and today I'm going to be reviewing Darwinia by Robert Charles Wilson. It was first published in 1998. It's about 300 pages, depending on the format you're reading it in, and its genre is science fiction/fantasy. For those of you that are new here, that's going to be everybody, as this is the first edition. I want to wish you a warm welcome. What I do is I review books from a multitude of different genres, and I accompany them with unique AI-generated images along with my own artwork. My goal is to try and visualize the interpretations of the many varied ways we may perceive the characters or the stories within our mind's eye. So grab a cup of tea or a coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy my interpretation of Darwinia. I hope you enjoy watching as much as I enjoyed creating it for you.
So Darwinia, well, it begins in 1912 and tells the story of an Earth completely transformed. During a fateful night, an event known as the Miracle changes the world in a dramatic way. Suddenly, Europe, parts of Asia, and Northern Africa, along with all their inhabitants, vanish overnight and are replaced by a fragment of an alien planet. This new landmass shares some similarities in terrain with the old world. For instance, there is still the Rhine, and the Alps still exist, but all of it is home to an entirely unfamiliar flora and fauna and a host of grotesque, deadly insects. It is a continent that has been shaped by an alternate path of evolution. The transformation is first noticed by ships sailing on their way to the continent by strange lights in the sky. Unfortunately, the first of the people to arrive are unprepared, and the moment that they land, they are met with a harsh and dangerous environment. The event changes the political relationship over the course of the following decades, and by the time we meet our protagonist Guilford Law in 1920, America has moved into trying to resettle and colonize the continent, and World War I never happened. England, however, has negotiated a fragile treaty with America and has its independence, with London becoming the first of any real settlement, a frontier town, so to speak. And to this is where Guilford and his wife Caroline and young daughter Lily emigrate to. Caroline is of course unhappy with having to relocate away from the civilized world of America, and resents Guilford leaving them in London whilst he runs away like a little boy, as she states. Guilford, however, believes he is doing what men do and have always done, leaving the family to secure riches abroad in order to establish their betterment for the future. Caroline and Lily move in with her auntie and uncle in London, whilst Guilford leaves for Europe on what will be known as the Finch Expedition, with their objective being to ascend the river once known as the Rhine and delve into the concealed depths of this bizarre new world to pursue riches and fame in the dark interior of the continent. As the story begins with the European characters, we are transported back to America about a quarter of the way through the book and are introduced to a so-called medium called Elliot Vale, who has an ability to see things within people, and those he comes into contact with, he convinces that he is able to talk to the dead. He is eventually noticed by a well-to-do lady, and after helping her find a lost item, he is soon introduced into the higher society circles of wealth and political influence. And this is where the book takes a peculiar twist. Elliot is mysteriously contacted by a large alien insect. He is kind of possessed, in my opinion, by the insect. This insect proclaims itself a god and promises him eternal life if he does his bidding. This god, then, through the preceding chapters, is able to use Elliot and the powers in the political circles he frequents to hire a band of mercenaries to attack the Flint expedition, which they then can use as a pretext for a war with the United Kingdom.
The premise of the book so far had me really intrigued. Wilson had written it in a way that reminded me of a retelling of the Lewis and Clark expedition in America, mixed with Conrad's Heart of Darkness. And the atmosphere he created around London hinted at one of danger but also mysterious excitement. And the chapters with the godlike insect trying to control Eliot reminded me of some of Lovecraft's tales.
As the first half of the book progresses, we flip between America and Eliot, and Europe with Guildford as he progresses deeper into the heart of the continent. He takes photos and keeps a diary of everything he has seen of the fantastical forests and rivers, while writing side notes to Caroline and Lily, telling them how much he loves and misses them. He is optimistic that he will make money with his photos upon his return, and his family will be alleviated of any future financial difficulties. Alas, a few months into the expedition, the insect god's plan comes to fruition, and the French expedition is attacked by armed partisans. News of the attack reaches London, and soon after, Caroline starts an affair with a young soldier who is lodging with them, proclaiming that he pays more attention to her emotional needs than Guildford did, and Guildford must be dead so she cannot be accused of being an adulteress. Her auntie, however, disagrees, and kicks her and Lily out of the house, where they are forced to live with the soldier. I enjoyed the tension that Wilson was creating here with the cheating wife, and her justifications for sneaking around. However, I felt he could have fleshed out the story a little more, perhaps showing us an internal emotional battle within Caroline, and her philosophical justifications for what she was doing against the backdrop of social dictate. This would have added a greater depth to her, as I felt she was an important character at the start of the book, and maybe a little too two-dimensional. Meanwhile, Guildford and his crew have become lost. They have managed to tame and ride these giant snakes that are indigenous to the land, and they head further into the alpine mountainous area, looking for a glacial lake. But pretty soon their numbers start dwindling due to insect attacks, bandit attacks, and the harsh environment. Within about 6 months they are down to a handful of men who are becoming rapidly starved and close to exhaustion and death. They then start having delirious dreams where they are visited by soldiers from World War I. As the World War never took place in their timeline, they really have no contextual reference as to who these soldiers represent. After some time, they stumble upon an ancient alien stone city that resembles a hive of some sort, but goes on for miles. They enter the city and find a broken dome over a kind of well which they descend. After becoming stuck down there for some time, Guildford and another one of the team called Tom Compton manage to escape. Sadly, Tom succumbs to his injuries, and the only one left is Guildford, who against all odds manages to find help and is nursed back to health. Guildford then returns to a London destroyed by American battleships. He learns of Caroline's infidelity and that she has emigrated to Australia with her lover and Lily in tow. Guildford is devastated and decides to get drunk and passes out in a field of refugees from the destroyed London. Here he is visited again by the ghosts of the World War I soldiers who have been stalking him throughout his time. We have now reached the halfway point through the book, and we get our grand reveal. Guildford learns that this soldier, who looks like him, is his other self in a universe that didn't transform and had a world war instead. This soldier explains that the end of time is approaching rapidly, and that the universe, Earth, and all consciousness that has ever existed is within a computer-like simulation called the Archive. Constructed by a coalition of sentient beings from across the universe, the Archive's purpose is to safeguard consciousness from annihilation. However, a plague of parasitic artificial intelligence lifeforms, known as scions, has infiltrated the Archive system. Guilford Law and others like him ultimately discover that they are instruments in a cosmic battle against the Scions, tasked with preserving the very essence of consciousness itself, and they must destroy them in a coming cosmic battle that will be held on Earth. Well, I definitely wasn't expecting a Matrix-style theme to this book when I began it. It certainly added a very interesting and engaging plot twist, and I was looking forward to seeing where it was going to go. I do think there should be a refit of the text though, with its reference to AI language. With what we know now, updating the syntax would give it a more polished feel, I think. The concepts Wilson was introducing back then were cutting edge in 1998, but we have come a long way in terms of algorithmic understanding and the coding that goes into it. His words and language are a little clunky and take away from presenting a clearer picture of what he was trying to convey. Guilford is told that he is now immortal and that he will be called upon during the end days to fight the AI virus that has taken over the world. Guilford refuses and demands a normal life where he can raise a family and grow old, but he is told he has no choice and that he will be called upon when the time comes. Upon becoming sober, Guilford writes all this down in a letter to Caroline and sends it to her in Australia. In my opinion, this is where the book lets me down. We are 3/4 of the way through, and I feel the remaining quarter is rushed. We suddenly jump 20 years into the future, and we find an ageless Guilford married to a lady named Abby, and they have a young son named Nicholas. They own a photography shop, and he is happily living his life that he had asked for, when one night the shop is suddenly burned down. Upon investigation, Guilford is met by his long dead and also ageless friend Tom Compton, who proceeds to tell him that Lily is alive and has returned from Australia to meet him. He meets up with Lily, and she explains to him that she believes everything he told Caroline in his letters to her about the end of the world, and she wants to help him fight the AI virus. Suddenly, without warning, Guilford's home is attacked and his family are killed. He is injured and he falls into a dream where his soldier self returns and tells him that the time is soon upon him and he must prepare. The story once again then jumps another 20 years into the future, and Guilford arrives in an alpine frontier town with hundreds of men similar to himself, ageless soldiers ready to fight the virus in the Battle of Battles. At a bar, Guilford catches the eye of a bartender called Karen and promises to take her out upon his return. Guilford, along with the gathering army, quickly descend upon the ancient stone city, and in a battle that is over before it begins, they defeat the entire incarnated insect army. As Guilford lays dying from his wounds, his World War I avatar self arrives and grants him the chance to live a normal human life of pain and love and suffering, and to grow old and die, which he ends up doing with the barmaid Karen.
And thus ends our trip to Darwinia, a compelling and interesting beginning and middle, sadly let down by a rushed ending and the cardboard characters that were introduced towards the latter stages of the book. Although the last chapter on Guilford's musings about wanting to experience suffering and pain as a human being, as opposed to being taken into the forever happiness of the AI, was rather thought-provoking. The last battle and the build-up to it, wet and wimp in my opinion. I hope you enjoyed watching and listening. Please do subscribe and like to the video, and leave some comments. I want to know what you thought of it. Did you like Guilford? What about Elliot? The story as a whole? I'm going to say so long for now, and I'll leave you with my favourite quote from the book.
"I have seen them before," said Guilford, "and they frightened me. Lord, what frightens a man who walks between the stars."